Tears of the Kingdom and Katamari Damacy are basically the same. In both games, you play a little guy dressed in green that gets sent up into the clouds to meet your new Sky Daddy. Oh wow. Then he tells you need to go back down to the surface and start gluing random things together. Then you do that for 100 hours. So today I will be rolling up a big Katamari, but built in the style of Tears of the Kingdom. We'll first start with making a little guy that just needs to reach their friend, preferably in a way that doesn't endanger their life. The first step is to grab my rag bag. This is a bag of clothes that can't be donated because someone keeps cutting off tiny pieces of fabric for various projects. This little piece of polyester blend will be the Korok's backpack. But the only camping essentials in this pack is an aluminum foil egg for structure. The first layer of fabric is a little sloppy and slightly transparent, so we'll need a second layer, but this time folded up very carefully like... For the bottom of the pack, I'm using this default t-shirt green, then hiding that horrible trim line with a hair tie as the hem. Using another shirt segment, I rolled up the Korok's blankie. Then to make sure it's not going to fall off in transit, I strapped it down using this canvas-like tag from said shirt. This shirt also came with free seams, which you can use to imply an accessible front pouch, and to complete the pouch aesthetic, some leather straps sliced from this pleather scrap. Then come the rhinestones, which I flipped over and glued on upside down so the pack buttons don't look too glamorous. Speaking of glamorous, it's time for accessories. I thought about making a tiny teapot from scratch, but instead bought the official Tamiya 1/35th scale teapot plastic model kit for $22 US. I called the kettle black, and then I called the kettle a dry brushed metallic chrome. And then I strapped this hot pot to the side of the pack along with its matching metal mug. On the opposing side of the pack will be a cute little acorn lamp, and for that we'll need a penguin of Madagascar. This penguin foot looks close enough to the hat part of the acorn, then for the head part of the acorn I'm using a bead. After a little paint to make it appear luminous, it's time to make a Korok. For that, just a pinch of 2-part epoxy sculpt. After letting the epoxy set up for about 5 minutes, I started sculpting my favorite Korok, which, out of the whole family of weirdos, is this little helpless squirt with the tree star face. And after the requisite tree bark zebra stripes, it was time to finish the face with foliage. If you have fake houseplants, just clip a leaf off the backside, no one's gonna know. I probably could have just used some green paper, but I like that this fake leaf already has some leaf veins. But it wasn't quite vascular enough, so I splotched on some light green, followed by 2 asymmetrical eyeballs. Let's get this little nugget ready for their adventure with a couple backpack straps. Then we'll complete the look with a cool stick they picked up off the ground. And with that, they should be ready to reach their friend. By the way, I'm far from the first person to make a Korok, so after this, if you're hungry for a way cuter Korok that you want to see hurled into orbit, check out this video by Crossing Crafts and watch them make
the Korok rocket, or a Korocket.
Alright buddy, time to go. Oops, we're not ready just yet. We have much more to build, starting with this big wheel. Oh great, they're almost done. These already have the little directional arrows on the treads that I need. The first thing to do is to remove all of these bumps. But I feel a little bad throwing all of these translucent pimples away, so into the bits box they go for some indeterminate purpose. I'm hiding the inner spoke details with a gear charm and a disc of bulgogi udon cardboard. Very important. Then, for the axle, I'm using a bead, but it's about twice as long as it needs to be. These wheels already have nicely detailed treads, but to give it a bit more depth, I'm slicing out some chevrons from thin craft foam. And just so there's no mistake as to which direction these arrows are pointing, I cut out a few more arrows for labeling the sides. And now we seal and texture. Along with the usual Mod Podge and black paint base coat, I'm adding some acrylic modeling paste for added texture. But you might be asking, how on earth? Those brushstrokes, they're way too sloppy and visible. I'll tell you, friend, my family's secret technique. In this house, we stipple that goop. When it comes to painting, Zonai technology is definitely green, but also blue. Though it is predominantly green with just a touch of blue, you can't deny that it's mostly green with a bit of blue mixed in. Out of these 7 paints, I only need 2 to make Zonai Seafoam Green. I base coated it with this color, then added a little bit of white to pick out certain areas for added contrast. Then dry brushed it with the same color to give it a slightly marbled appearance. A complementary copper gold was used for all the parts that are supposed to be copper gold, followed by a light green squiggly gibberish script, and that's the entire Zonai aesthetic. Next up, on this world tour of Zonai technology, we're bouncing over to my personal favorite, the spring. For the main structure, I'm using these off-brand building block toys that are legally distinct from Lego. It's a well-known fact that destroying actual Lego is equivalent to burning legal tender. But you don't have to worry though, these aren't actually Lego. These are, legs. On top of these Legoless legs, I'm attaching a couple dollar store brick toys, then a piece of craft foam and a button to complete the launch pad. I built up the spring mechanism and undercarriage of this little quadruped using a smattering of bits. Then I started assembling what can only be described as the spring's face. On each of the spring's 4 faces is a gaping maw with teeth and lips, then a set of beady eyes made from beads. Just like before, we're smattering this 4-headed beast with a Zonai color scheme of dark and light seafoam greens. Oh, almost forgot to add the nose for the legend of Smelda. A little dry brushing for a marbled effect, teeth whitening for those pearly whites, gold for the opulent details, glow stick green for the eyes, and we're ready to launch. The spring may be my favorite, but I'm a big fan of this next one. I found a couple of these finger bikes at a thrift store. Honestly, I was never very good at these. I was much more of a skater boy. These wheel spokes will make up the fan face. Then for the fan base, this protective cap from a shelf and this cord management loop. I'm making a circular cage from these pieces, and since you'll likely be able to see the interior, that means we'll need fan blades. Very hideous fan blades, I might add, because I lacked the quality bits. Then I slapped on a sloppy paint job now, since access will be impossible once the front and back of the fan are glued together. Then it's on to the usual Zonai color scheme. Spoiler alert right now, but I'm not making every Zonai device in Tears of the Kingdom. My choices were partially based on the Zonai tech I felt like making, and also my belief that nobody wants to watch an exciting tutorial on Zonai battery and big battery. But fan though, that's a classic. Sorry it doesn't look exactly like it does in the game, it kinda blows. Alright, now we need to steer this video back on track. The steering stick starts as a wood circle, which becomes an octagon. From my days as a skater boy, I have a bunch of these wrench tools that you use to tighten your truck nuts. If we bend the handle just a bit, it'll work as the handlebars. Then, using these handlebars from earlier, we can give Link something to grip onto. Some craft foam to build up the foundation, and some paperboard to clean up the bottom. Bulgogi. Next, some air dry clay. This is for the footpad, which needs some Zonai feet debossed into it. Presumably, these footprints would be the same as the feet of our resident Zonai, Raru. At first, it was a little difficult to find feet references for him, but if you need Raru feet pics, make sure to keep your safe search on. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time, or a rad time, depending on what you're into. Next up is the Zonai cart, which is strictly used as the skateboard of Hyrule. First, some beads and bits to make the wheels, complete with Spitfire bearings, then a sick deck carved from a piece of dollar store foam. The edge needs some brick details so Link has something for his skate shoes to catch on during those kick flips and heel flips. And you can't forget the grip tape carved directly into the deck, otherwise Link's ollies will not be nar-nar. After a coat of fresh paint, Link is ready to get out there and start spreading the legend of zoomies. No fears of the grindingdom. I promise that's the last skate joke. Speaking of carts, there's also the homing cart, which is just a cute little dragon tank that craves killing. We'll start by making the tank treads for this tiny murder Roomba. Oh nice, tank treads. I'll use these to complete the tank treads. Neat. A bead connects these two tiny treadmills together, then we'll start carving the Roomba body. We'll slice away at this block until it's a pleasant round rectangle. Then we'll start building up the lizard face, starting with the eyes. For that, we'll need a trinket from an old friend. Oh, thank you, my queen. As always, a tiny horseshoe charm has inserted itself into this crafting video. While typically a curse on any given project, I had a small revelation this time. Why limit ourselves to the form of a horseshoe when they can be coerced into an elegant almond eye? Then for the teeth, I found a sheet of these tiny stud stickers. The rest of the dragon face details are built up from pieces of craft foam laid out into a mosaic of dragon scales. But my favorite detail of the face are the cute, fluttering eyelashes. The face is almost complete, but it's missing a couple nostrils, gingerly melted into the face with a hot foam cutter. And lastly, we need to sneak up behind this toothy toad and give them a tail. But we won't need that blade. Just the handle will do for now. That means it's painting time. I'm slopping the goop on extra thick for that first coat just to fill in all the visible gaps between the dragon scales. And if you can believe it, we're applying the same painting scheme as seen in all previous Zonai devices so far. The only exception being that this is the toothiest Zonai device, so it required a few extra coats of teeth whitening to get that grimace smile just right. Then, after the gold details, this little gilded war machine is ready to roll up onto enemy lines. Perhaps one of the most puzzling Zonai devices in Tears of the Kingdom is the Hydrant, and the mystery of how this infinite resource isn't somehow solving all of Hyrule's water needs. To make the hydrant, we won't need this. All we need are beads. This bead's neck is a bit too thick for the head we need to attach. I bought this weird cap bead specifically for this hydrant, and I honestly can't fathom any other purpose for it. Sales at the bead depot have skyrocketed since the release of this game. Everyone's trying to make a tiny bead hydrant. The water spout is an earring back speared with a safety pin trimmed to size. Uh-oh. After assembling the spout and this especially little fancy end cap I found, I went ahead with painting all of this ornate jewelry geometry in the typical Zonai fashion. Now that we're properly wet and hydrated, it's time to dry off. This is the flame emitter, and it started out as a very crude and featureless Barney head. Then I added various beads, gears, and hairbands to make its eyes, lips, and teeth. A little piece of styrene rod is shoved down its throat as the fire-breathing dragon element, and speaking of dragon elements, ancient Zonai Barney also needs a set of horns. A horseshoe split in half provides the proper horn swoop. Then it's painted up in non-Barney colors. Well, actually green is a complementary color to Barney's purple hair, or Barney's cloth.
Cloth is just little hairs!
For our final Zonai device, the rocket. To the top of this bulbous bead, I'm adding one of these metal studs as the rocket's cone. And now remember this very specific bead I used 2 minutes ago? You were probably wondering what happened to this little piece I cut off, and the exciting conclusion is I'm using it right here. Compelling stuff. For the rocket fins, I'm using these wooden craft discs chiseled into a slightly long quadrant. But in order to achieve lift, we need some engines in that underhole. For that, I'll be using tiny seed beads, which you can pick up by using your finger's natural moisture. I spent way too long trying to get these on straight because seed beads are only one level above glitter in the crafting circle of hell. And so I did it 4 times. These final pieces of Zonai tech also get the same color treatment as per the Zonai brand guide. We may be out of the woods when it comes to Zonai devices, but now we're going into the woods. Throughout the game, you'll find these caches of wood building materials left by Hudson Construction, and as a fellow son, we must do our president proud and build some good wood. But we're going to need a lot of wood planks. I'm sure there's a way to infuse some efficiencies into our construction. Since these boards just sit uncovered out in the weather, they need a little bit of weathering. And every son knows that the Hudson construction way is 2 joists on one side to support these planks, but I'm not really sure what's on the other side. I think it's blank, but I'll just add a few of these tack nails for extra detailing. The boards are done, but we need to stain this wood so it looks like wood. Using Mineru spirits, mixed with a few different shades of brown oil paint, I am bouncing back and forth between each color to give each board a more varied, natural appearance. Pretty sure we can call this one Sun and Done, but let's consult the game just to be safe. Uh-oh. There are support joists on both sides of these planks. It's not a big deal when it comes to these minor details.
It doesn't matter! It matters a great deal!
You're absolutely right, Mr. President. Joists on both sides it is. It was a novice mistake not to double the supports. The last thing I would want is to structurally fail you, and then I wouldn't be your son anymore. Speaking of sons, maybe it's time I learned some lessons from the man that practically invented support. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of blood moon seems to stay Addison's resolve to stay. First, we'll need a worthy cause for support. Personally, I can think of none other than foregoing the labor laws of Hyrule and holding a billboard with a picture of your boss on it for 24 hours a day. Actually, I'm not even sure if Hudson pays Addison. Addison kind of strikes me as the guy you'd want as your first unflappable cult follower. He's just racking up some serious volunteer hours. But what could compel this man to stand there all day? And what's going on under those bulbous mushroom haircuts? It's just one of the many mysteries I expect to see solved in a Zeltic video one of these days. Anyway, we're painting a shirtless Hudson. We're gonna partially cover up those muscles with a red construction vest, but don't worry, it might be business in the front, but it's bear hug in the back.
Great size. Look thick, solid, tight.
I finished up the billboard with the Hylian text, but it still needs some support. Looks like I'll need to disconnect the sign so that we can slide on a tiny Addison wrapped around the pole. Using some metal armature wire, I'm sculpting an Addison pretzeled around his sign. I'm keeping his grip pretty loose though, so I'll be able to slide him back on once he's covered in clay. Before committing to the head and shirt details though, I'm going to do a quick bake on this worm-looking baby. As discussed, one of the most pronounced details of Addison is his weirdly long head and mushroom haircut. Just like his favorite business daddy Hudson, Addison also sports an open red vest. He also lugs around an oversized backpack, presumably stuffed to the gills with rupees and rice balls to give to anyone who can show him how to do his job. After painting up Addison's clothes and his ever so slightly purple shade of hair, he should be ready to demonstrate his rock-solid and unwavering support for President Hudson. You got this, Addison. Let's see it. I don't have a segue here. I just love this big spiky ball. It kinda looks like a Katamari, but dangerous. To make this big spiky ball, I'm using this dollar store Christmas bauble. For a rough iron appearance, it needs to be heavily sanded and rasped. This won't only help with the painting and dry brushing later, but it will also give the plastic some tooth so we can more easily glue on some metal spikes. To make this Christmas bauble seem a bit more intentional, I'm patching it up with some strips of craft foam and rhinestone rivets. But these spikes make it a bit, hard to handle. Oh, after a black base coat and a silver dry brush, this big beautiful danger ball is done. Another dangerous item in Tears of the Kingdom is the minecart. We'll start with the wheels, borrowed from this dollar store fire engine, which I'll link together on a toothpick axle. Then I'll link these axles together with a cardboard I-beam made off camera. The rest of the minecart is dollar store foam board, but the trickiest part was figuring out how to make the walls of the minecart bow outward. I did this by slicing the foam at a gentle curve so that when I wrapped it around the base, the larger radius of the outer curve compensated for the forced straight line of the inner curve, and it became good somehow. But the important thing is we love a good changing radii. I gave the minecart an especially thick layer of stippled goop to make it extra textured, then dry brushed it in a series of progressively lighter grays to bring out the stone-like appearance. Speaking of stone-like appearance, it appears we need some rolling stones for our rolling Katamari. Now, no offense to the stones in this build, but they're just bulky filler. But I don't want it to seem like I'm taking them for granted, because the craft will have a bolder look with them. At the end of the day, I just want the craft to have many layers, so whatever I said, I meant. Now to turn these crude lumps into rocks. For that, we'll need rocks. Vigorous shaking imbues the foam with regular old lumpy rock texture. Hold on. There's an extra rock in here. Oh, a blessing. This goddess statue has shown me that rock is merely a mindset. Who am I to cast a stone at a rock, plain as they may be? Inside every rock is a goddess statue waiting to be liberated from its stone prison, so I've changed my mind. Rocks rock. And now I'm gonna reverse Excalibur one of these rocks. One more horseshoe. This will be the sword hilt, which I added a few bits to make the handle. Then, using the knife blade seen earlier in this video, I shaved it down a bit to make a crude, tarnished broadsword blade. Then, it was time to fuse. Whoa, I almost forgot the goddess statue. Wow, so beautiful. Just like the other stones, the goddess statue gets a black oil wash followed by a light gray dry brush. But unlike those rolling stones, this one gathers moss. The easiest way to sprout this little cherub chia pet was to paint on the glue, then dip it straight into the pot of green flocking. The goddess statue was going to be my last rock, but I think I can find it in my heart for one more. At the heart of every stone talus is a heart, speckled with aquarium gravel. My personal favorite is the luminous stone TALUS heart because it looks like a pendant that a turquoise-obsessed grandma would pick up at a flea market. Time for a quick inventory. This is enough to round out a Katamari, but it'll be lonely without a star to do the rolling. Just like Addison, I'm starting with metal armature wire to block out Link's pose. He'll be using Ultra Hand, which means I need to give up my right arm. Time to flesh out these bones. I don't consider myself a sculptor, but I wanted to do right by the peak design of Link's body. Though in the end, I think I spent way too much time finessing the abs and popping those pecs, especially because all of these details will mostly be obscured under ancient Zonai garb. There's a lot of reference images out there for Link without clothes, but much like Raru's feet, your journey may vary depending on your safe search settings.
Computer load up, nude.
Link!
Oh!
Link's right hand is an Ultra Hand made from a bunch of thin clay strips. I think this Link looks less twink and more twunk, so we'll dub him Lunk. But before this gets rated T for teen, he needs some clothes. I rolled out a gossamer sheet of clay and cut out several small rectangles to make his skirt, toga, and shoulder drape. Through poking and prodding, I folded the fabric to make it appear as if it was billowing in the wind. Whoop, oh, good catch. All of these wafer-thin strips, straps, and belts were at constant risk of tearing, so wherever they landed, that's pretty much where I stuck them down. And finally, Link's head. His head is a pill-shaped tube, which is wrapped in a sheath of clay with a rectangular window cut out of the center for his face to peek through. On top of Link's head is his antenna, and in the middle of his face, his simple triangular nose. We'll finish up his other face details, then pad out the antenna for a stronger Wi-Fi signal to Space Daddy. Okay, I lied, this isn't exactly Link, and it isn't exactly the prince from Katamari either, but it is a fusion of all of the traits they share. Both of these silent protagonists are really good at listening to a king's voice from the heavens tell them what to do in order to make everyone in their respective worlds really happy. So roll on, Prince Link. We'll soon be ready to roll up our Katamari, but how big will it be? About 1 Christmas bowl's worth. A Katamari of this size needs a base about this size. Through the center of this foam, I'm using a hot foam cutter to melt the foam and carve out a trail of destruction, and oh no, that's a lot of smoke. I need to go outside before I get lung cancer. To make the surface more earthy, I have some leftover gray Mod Podge goop that's still slightly moist. Let's reawaken it with some plaster, some old paint water, Mod Podge, and brown paint to make a ground texture paste. But before letting this dry, it needs a layer of dirt dug up from the depths. Thankfully, I only needed to skim off a couple spoonfuls from the surface. No need to delve down too greedily and too deep and awaken something.
Go back to the shadow.
The center of the space will remain a rustic dirt road running through the center of Hyrule, whilst the sides of the trail will be framed by a field of grass creeping in on either side. Using a static grass applicator, I'm spreading out a generous layer of PVA glue, then letting static electricity do its thing to get the tiny blades of grass to stand straight up. Make sure to save that unstuck grass for later. Lawns of pure grass make me sick, so I'm sprinkling in some moss and weeds for biodiversity. Then, after cleaning up the edge with black paint, we can finally begin to consider thinking about planning on actualizing a rolled up Katamari. There's a couple ways to go about doing this. One is normal hot glue sticks, but the other is green Zonai glue sticks. We'll test it on these 3 Zonai devices to make what every Ultra Hander worth their power cells is very familiar with. Great news! It's time to assemble this big bowl of Zonai breakfast cereal into a Katamari, but while the green Zonai glue begins to flow, Check out this flow of some great people on Patreon that help make these videos possible. Michael Slayton, Dash and Cora, Judiano, Totally Not Mimi, Obio, Toby the Greento, KVO, The King in Yellow, Bestie Cole, Christy Clove, Kelly Vone, Techio, Samantha Cohen, Brent Bassett, The Crafty Pineapple, Corley Cat, Scarlett, Jazzy-O, 451, Suni, Yunzo, Weefon, Pacalon, Kristen Murphy, Philip Allard, Godro, Ollie Bear, Meister, Kelly Art Studio, A. Chris Nielsen, Kitty Danger Duke, Hackett and Hudson, Daniel Musabi Blue, Jessica McKenbridge, Jippy, Samalama, Dama Gravy, Evans Fan, Margaret P, Woody Marty, Santa Gravy, Allie, Julie, AC, Yog Reed, Coco Berry, D. Lucy Durham, Jamie Leiden, Lucas Norman, Sinead at Creative Deep End, Squash, Nikita, Gabby does stuff, Comic Kibble, Akira, their robot stuff, H. Baron, Leah, Emily Laguna, Llewellyn and Gregory, Todd Page, Chattanooga Zolina, Tony Zolina III, Megan Rowena Hunter, Naomi Agnes Beaver, Beamos Connor McGuire, Trinity Truth Third, Joe and Fee Streetfield, David Trapeze Sore, Baked Pie, Great Barrier Riff, Austin and Planet Panic, Screech, I'm a Cryptid. And here's our beautiful Katamari.
Wow, how marvelous!
But do you know what's even more marvelous? All of this Zelda-related art created by my patrons. Occasionally, over on the Studson Patreon, link in the description, we'll hold various art challenges and showcases. This video's showcase theme was open to any art related to The Legend of Zelda across any sort of creative medium. Some of these art submissions have accompanying videos, which I've included in the description. Check them out. Psst! If you're interested in sharing your Zelda art, here's a secret heads up that there might be another opportunity on another Zelda-related video in the very near future. So if you've noticed the severely lacking presence of the Wand of Gamelon art and you desperately need to fill that hole, you can join up on Patreon to learn how you can submit your own art for future videos.
As long as you have enough rubies.
Thanks for all your art submissions, everyone. And now it's time to roll out our beautiful Katamari and roll the beauty shots.